Welcome to the Persistence U podcast with Lisbeth. That's you as in university, but we're really much more of a community here. Your host is Lisbeth Meredith. She's an author, speaker, and online teacher. Each week, she'll be delivering amazing stories from survivors and thrivers, all threaded together with a dose of persistence. We're so glad you're listening.
Folks, it is great to have you here for Gina Economopoulos' story. She had a delightful journey that led her to the amazing purpose that she has today, and that is helping people as they transition out of the world. And strange as that sounds, Gina's story is so fascinating and useful. I mean, frankly, all of us could use some help at a very trying time, this trying time at our life, when a loved one or even ourselves are needing to have support as we leave the world. I wanted to give you a quick invite also for those of you who are women and who used travel after the age of 40, particularly 50 and older. But if you've used travel to boldly learn to heal, grow, or find new confidence as a solo traveler, I'm looking for women who have their true stories to submit to an anthology that I plan to publish in late 2025 or early 2026 as at the latest. So, solo women travelers, bold journeys, stories of healing, resilience, and self-discovery. I think for myself, the first time I never pictured that I would get to leave the country. I just grew up really in a humble situation. I was so ecstatic when I went to Europe the first time as a 22, maybe 23-year-old new mom. And so I thought that was like a one and done. I was married to someone from another culture. I didn't foresee that I would have to learn to get over my huge fear of flying and just being in my own company by myself when I had to go overseas repeatedly to find my kidnapped daughters years later. So by the time I was 29 and 30, I would have nightmares in my sleep, not just because my daughters were kidnapped and at a place that I didn't know where for sure that they were, but I was so scared to get on a plane that I kept having recurring nightmares of plane crashes. I had to learn to overcome that fear to be able to reunite with my daughters. But so many years after that, I didn't have money for vacations and things like that. Then when my kids were grown up, and we had some vacations, but not many, I didn't hop on planes regularly. As an older woman in my 40s, I found the most empowering thing was to learn to go overseas by myself and stay, not as a part of a organized tour or a cruise group or something like that, but literally I had to test my mettle. And the first trip was to Vietnam and Laos by myself. And then later to Australia, and then later to Uruguay and Argentina. And I went to Italy. Things I learned to do cheaply. I mean, seriously on a budget. And yet I loved it. And I gained so much more confidence. There are tons of people who appreciate travel for increasing their resilience. If you're one of them, Solo Women Travelers, Bold Journeys, Stories of Healing, Resilience, and Self-Discovery is looking for stories. So send me your stories of no more than 1,200 words if you're a woman who did such a trip like this after the age of 40. No more than 1,200 words. I'm looking for first-person narrative stories only, not as told to or anything like that. I want people to be able to use their own names. We're not looking for people who can't name themselves or that their story can't be verified. But if you're talking about other people that you met on your journey, absolutely, you'll want to change their names. It's just going to be an exciting anthology of so many different women's experiences and how they use travel to increase their resilience and what it did for them. Travel can, quite frankly, be, something like healing after a divorce, challenging yourself and finding your new voice. friendships made, things you learned about yourself as you learned about new cultures. I will give extra focus to people who left their own country and really, really tested their grit. On the other hand, sometimes a person's life is such that just going to another state or even on a cruise ship by themselves is so very challenging that that would make a great story also. So I just wanted to give this early call out that I will be responding to and putting this on my social media. My email group will know first when I have the call out ready to go. And so find me at lameredith.com, put your name on the email list, and go ahead and write me if you like and just ask more about it. Put anthology in the subject line. I think this will be such a beautiful book. I'm really looking forward to hearing stories, having people share theirs. And there are a lot of benefits to being inside of an anthology. And so while it will not pay much at all, trust me, most anthologies don't pay. And books don't necessarily make money, so there are not going to be ongoing royalty payments. I'm going to make sure that every person who is a participant has the option to learn more about being an author, about how to market a book, about different things that can help in case this person, in case it's you, are looking to write more later on. Anthology is a great way to get your toe in this, put your foot in the pool and see if you want to be a writer. All right, let's go on to Gina Economopoulos. Thanks so much for being here. It is a beautiful day on November the 4th, and I am bringing you Gina Economopoulos. And as you can tell by the great name, she is part Greek. She's from a Greek and Italian heritage. And Gina was born with a whole lot of physical problems and disabilities as a child, in a household filled with tons of able-bodied children. And she had great parents, it sounds like, but Gina had a hard time having the hard time. It had normal responses like, why me? All of those things. As she got older and her love and support for her family is so evident. But Gina lost her mother, and it may have started a spiral at first, but eventually she did become the person I bet that her mother knew that she always would be. She worked with individuals with disabilities, later landing on a beautiful career as a death doula, somebody who sits beside you basically and helps usher one out of the life that they're living today into their death, actually, so that they're not all alone in what could be for some a very terrifying and lonely process. Gina is an author today, and let me read you the title of her book. Oh, well, I'll have Gina mention it. I had it, but, oh yes, here we are. It is called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk, and it's by Gina Economopoulos, and I am so excited to hear Gina talk about that transformation, which was really spiritual and soulful one that led her to help others. So thanks for being here as ever. Shares, reviews where you get your podcasts, any of that are so incredibly helpful. Thanks so much. I will introduce you to Gina as soon as I can find the button.
It's always nice to meet you.
Gina Economopoulos, thank you for being here today on Persistence U. And it is lovely to meet you. And I kind of felt like we were almost related because you're Greek and I'm not. But I have that beautiful tie with that amazing country. So thank you for making time for us today.
Oh, what an honor to be here with you. And yes, I didn't realize you had a little Greek in you in some form or fashion.
Well, as we look at your story, I did in your introduction mention that you had a lot of physical challenges as a child in a huge family of children who did not. And that can make a person feel very almost singled out in a way, depending on how they look at it. But it was the passing of your mother that really seemed to solidify the journey that became you understanding what you feel your purpose is. So can you talk to us about that?
Oh, yes, definitely. I just graduated from college, searching. And as you said, like I come from a large family, and I would compare saying what, my family, my siblings had A, B, C, D, and look at me, nothing's happening to me. And that really stems from my childhood. But yet, with my mom being diagnosed with cancer, I just happened to be at home and I watched her die. I was there when she died. I gave her permission to die without me realizing it because I didn't know really who I was. There was no peace within me. So when she did die, in the 5 months that we took care of her, my dad and I, and the help of my siblings in and out. But when you're there as a sole caregiver 24/7, and my mom meant a lot to me. I mean, she did, and she still does. And so I did everything I could. So when she died, I died too. I was 23 years old. I was bartending at the time, thinking that, I know what life is all about. And when she had died at the wake, I was just like inconsolable, like you couldn't comfort me. And 23 years old, I have no no husband, no nothing, and I'm like bartending. It's like what? It's like I'm done. I'm done. And but through that, being at the funeral or the wake, everyone would say they try to give you comfort words. Like, oh yeah, your mom's with God, your mom's here, your mom like, no, she's not with me. She's not with me. And
Oh,
I was raised Catholic, but yet I left the Catholic Church or didn't need it. Not that I didn't believe in a God, but I just didn't need the Catholic Church. So when everyone kept saying your mom is with God, I went back to the church and I would say, okay, God, my mom, they say my mom's with you. I don't want nothing to do with you. Yeah, and so that was in a sense of the beginning in hindsight because I stopped bartending. I'm clinging to my dad. Like I keep saying, I'm 23 because I realize, and somebody says at 23, that's where your mom means the most to you, with, getting married and all that, having kids, just to be with you. And meanwhile, I wasn't even engaged. So, but still, it was just like really the loss that I was totally lost. I grieved, grieving was my best friend. I went through it from beginning of anger, denial, through the steps. And then as I continue to persist, kept, crying and just searching. I was just searching. What I was searching for, what is the meaning of life? What is death? Where does people go? Yeah. And as I was searching for all this, as I came back to my Catholic roots, I sort of had like an aha moment, like, there is a heaven, or there is, at that time, there is this and there is that, and there is peace. And my mom is at peace. And so I came back to my Catholic roots through just searching. And plus I contribute to my cousins, the Italian side, that very devout Catholic, brought me back to the church and everything. And so that's how I and even my mom was very devout at the end of her life. So I saw the devoutness that my parents always had, and it planted seeds in me, I would say. But like I said, I wasn't there at the time. So when I had this aha moment, I'm like, oh, there is a God, there is a heaven, there is life after this life, whatever anyone believes, but there's peace. There's peace because I was not in peace. And so when I claimed that, or when I explored that, I continued to search. And then I ended up joining the convent. I ended up becoming a Catholic nun as a sister, thinking, yeah, this is it. I got it. And it was just during that, they would say one, it's like a conversion state, conversion, like you're going from, because at that time I was bartending, living like a Sodom and Gomorrah, living, whatever you want to call it, living away from the Lord, whatever you want to call it, not living a good life, because I was so unhappy on the inside. And and I bring back to my childhood because I remember I was always looking for love, looking for love. And I was looking in the wrong places. There was a great song. I didn't write it, but, I wish I wrote that song, looking for love in all the wrong places.
right.
But yet that wasn't me, that was me just looking for that comfort and that love within inside me. And so when I came back to my Catholic faith and when I came into the sisterhood, I joined an order. I was like, okay, I got that love, but that love was temporary. It didn't stick. It didn't stick. I was there for 12 years as being a nun, as being a sister down in the South Bronx of New York, and lived a life of poverty, lived a life of sleeping on the bedboards, very austere, traditional, a religious order. And I thought that was it. Yeah, like this is my calling or this is my vocation. This is my life. But as you can see, I'm not a sister anymore. So there must have been more to it. And I was there for 12 years. And then in those 12 years, really, in the last few years, I suffered a lot. I experienced a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of, and I just kept persevering, just one day at a time. The bottom line is that I got kicked out. I got kicked out of the convent. It is what it was, They had their way, I was this way, and we just didn't clash together. That's what it comes down to it. But in that, I just experienced a lot of pain and suffering because at that moment, especially the last 2 years of my convent days, I was married to God. So as for any kind of marriage, whether it's a human being or marrying the church of God, I did everything I could to, what's wrong, to make it like, let's make amends. What's going on here? What can I do to change? Or how can we make this work? Because I gave my whole life, gave up everything. And they say in the religious life, or I was told, when God calls you, he won't reject you, and it's like, but yet ultimately at the end of my convent days where I was sent away, went to go work on myself and all this stuff and coming back and thinking, yes, this is it. And there was still not that peace inside me, that peace that I kept searching for. It wasn't even that love inside me. I wasn't being fed by the convent. And of course I didn't realize it back then, but at the time it was like, poor me, look at me. What am I going to do now? And I got to a point where I did all this treatment, all this inside job and like, yes, I'm on fire. Yes, this is my calling. Well, it turned out that it's not my calling. I felt like at the end of it, the community says to me, oh, we don't think you belong anymore. And that was it, So I felt like I did everything I could, my blood, sweat, and tears to try to do whatever I can. Like I said, I related like a marriage, like a husband and wife working things out. And then all of a sudden I got against the wall. Okay, I surrender. And once again, that was a pivotal time in my life because even though I thought it was the worst day of my life, it became the best day of my life because I continued. Well, I left with more tears. I was broken. I was shattered. I was like, oh my God, how can this be? I was a nun. I'm Sister Regina. Everybody loved me. God, how could you do this to me? So that took a lot. It took a lot. I was in my 40s at this time, at the age of 40s, in my 40s, that I left the community. I was kind of clueless of life. So then I went to go live with men with disabilities. It was a transitional stage because I wouldn't know what to do. I really would not know because, like I said, my life was austere. So I continued. I lived with these men with disability and I felt a lot of healing. You get a lot of healing from people who are Down syndrome, autistic. There's a lot of love there.
So you worked there and served them? Is that correct? You worked?
That is correct. I stayed,
Okay.
I lived with them. I was like a house mom for
Okay.
2 years, which I was like, yeah, this is great. They love me. They love me. And once again, the theme of my life was looking for that love, looking for that love. And one would think by the time you're 42 as a sister and everything, you would find that love. You would find who you are. And that's what I realized. The love that I was searching for was finding who I am, who I am, what's my purpose in my life. And I'm finding that peace and being content with Gina. Because Gina never liked herself as a kid. Gina, with everything going on, like the poor me's and the self-pity. And so anyhow, and so when I was with these men and women with disabilities, I mean, they were able to love without, just loving anything. And that's what I needed, which was a great gift. But then after 2 years, I was sort of like, once again, on a journey. I had to look. I was still searching. And I was, at this point, I was tired of service because even as a nun, I was hands on with the poor, with the elderly, with the dying. I was, with bury the youth, you name it. That's what we did. And I love that because I do have a heart of service that God had given me. So, but at the same time, I was so tired after 2 years this. And so I decided to come to the Jersey Shore, where I live. I love the beach. Beaches of healing. It's where heaven and earth meets in my eyes. It's just peace. And so I had to find a job. It's like, okay, what is Gina gonna do? Or it's just everything. And I didn't want to help anyone, to be honest, because I was just depleted. I wanted to do something fun, so I went back to bartending because that's the only thing I knew how to do, was a bartender or being a nun. So I bartended. I went back to bartending thinking, okay, I got to start over, start a new life, find my purpose, find that love. And then I bartended, and that's where I met a guy 2 years after I left the convent. His name was Danny. So I'm like, wow, here's a guy that loves me. So this is my purpose. I always, believe it or not, when I was 18, I wanted to get married by the time I was like 19 and have 8 kids by the time I was 25 or 26. I don't know if that was possible, but coming from a large family, that's what I was like, yeah, I want that. But that wasn't in my plans, or it was in my plans, but it didn't happen. So here, when I met Danny, granted, I was past having kids, but I found someone I could be with. And so, we started dating, and it was just, we had a lot of interest, but then yet come to find out that he was an alcoholic. He was a drinker. At the time he was drinking. So I'm like, oh my God, I mean, why can't I find someone in that kind of sense? But he was so loving to me, and I fell in love with him. We fell in love, and he was getting sober, and he tried to get sober several times, which he did. And when he did, it was great guys like, yes, we're going to go to Timbuktu. We're going to live on, this is it. This is what I'm meant to be. Finally, after all the, pain and hardships I have endured in my life, that I'm being graced with happiness, like my life. But then yet 2 years after we started dating, 2.5 years later, he died of the disease. So, once again, pivotal, another grief moment. It's like, why me? I mean, now I'm in my late 40s. Why me? Why did this happen to me? And at this point, I was very angry with my God. I was so angry with life. I was angry with myself. I was depleted, Elizabeth. I was like, put me in a corner and I'll be happy as a pig and whistle, or not happy, but that's what I thought my life was all about at that time. I was tired of really, that's what I thought. I thought I will never be happy, never meant to be. Let Lisbeth be happy, let Johnny be happy, but not let Gina be happy. Like I'll endure everything. Give it to me and I'll endure it. Like I always say, like that Mikey commercial, give him the life cereal, give it to Mikey, he'll eat it. Give it to Gina and she'll suffer. She doesn't need to be happy. And so that's where my mind was at and my heart was at. But at the time, after Danny died, which he had a tragic incident, a tragic story of himself, I came back to the Jersey Shore because it happened out in Midwest, and I was just flatlined. Like I was, and I could remember now. Back then, it was like being in the hospital and pressing the button, and nobody coming. Like dead. Like I was simply existing. And then once again, there was something in me and searching, persisting, like, why did Danny die? Like, what is life about? And now I'm in my late 40s. It's like, what's going on in my life? What's the meaning of life? And what's the meaning? Why did Danny die and people are sober today? I couldn't understand that. So once again, I'm a runner and a searcher. So I went searching, and I went into a 12-step program in the rooms of AA and listening and wondering, why did you get it and he didn't? And I had done that. I was there for, and see in these rooms, you're allowed to be in, like I was not an alcoholic, but you were allowed to sit in and open meetings and just to listen to people's stories. And once again, I couldn't tell you how or why, but I just kept pushing forward to taking one breath and just saying and just sitting and crying. Oh my God, tears are my best friend. Tears were my best. I mean, they still are at times, they're great for healing. And then when one time I'm in the rooms like 10 months later to say I wasn't identifying myself as an alcoholic, somebody came up to me and says, "What is your relationship with alcohol? You come here every day." And then I went in high, I looked back in my life. I look back as a child. I look back when I was in college. I look back that the pain I would be running away to, I ran to a bottle. I couldn't stop drinking. All those and symptoms of fear and the manipulation. That I realized I'm an alcoholic. So I've been in the rooms for 9 years of sobriety, but once they said that, like saying, "Hi, my name is Gina, I'm an alcoholic," that's another pivoted time. But it's been a lasting more moment in my life because it's like, oh my God. And it was the hardest time too. It was another, one would say the worst day, but the best day. It was like the best day of my life. And because it didn't happen overnight, it wasn't no microwave healing. It's a process of one day at a time. And when I learned, when I said I was an alcoholic, everything, all the wounds and the pains that I was carrying as a child, all my health, all the poor me's, the self-pity, all the hurts, the anger, it just opened up like my pores. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this? It's like, not again. But then yet I listened to what the rooms would say. I listened to other people, and I started working a program, a 12-step program, and started letting go. And to be honest, I had the best, I experienced a spiritual awakening that I never, ever had before a sister, when I was a sister, when I was young in the Catholic, nothing, that in these rooms of the 12-step, that is like, oh my God, I have a higher power. I have a God who loves me. And, like I said, I have 9 years plus in sobriety, and my eyes, like I found who Gina is. Like I came to embrace me. I came to love me. And yes, as we hear, we're never totally healed. Our journey of healing continues to go. It continues because life goes on. Life goes on. And so, but now knowing that I am an alcoholic, and knowing that I am a child of God, or I have a faith in, or I have a power that's not Gina, that I have tools in the program and tools positive. I can live life today in a healthy solution, where I was living life in a negative, poor me, not me, doubtful, dark solution. But now I could live life in a healthy solution and become the better person I am every day, one day at a time, one situation at a time. And then in that, like all the techniques, like I said with you earlier, I listened to Heidi's Love with your podcast with her, and the breathing is like, wow, I like that technique, that I can incorporate in my technique or in my routine, or what my strong suit is, to incorporate, like, okay, I could be calm, in certain situations. And that's what I love life today. And I love people with different experiences, different backgrounds, different, how they persisted and how they came to find their love within themselves. Because to me, my opinion is that we're all searching for that love for ourselves. We all have a soul sickness. We are all trying to be content and have that peace within, which I found it, in the last several years by, working and looking at myself, embracing, and this, and everything. But that's like in any kind of avenue, if you want to find that light. And like I said, to live in a healthy solution and a loving solution. So.
And when I introduced you, I mentioned that you wrote a book. Where can people find out more about you and your book?
Yes, I wrote the book called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. It's my memoir. It's my first time author, and you can find it on Amazon, and you can find it on my website, Gina Econ, short, GinaEcon.com.
That is very short. And you have a beautiful Greek name, but it does go on for some syllables. So you've shortened it to make it easy. GinaEcon.com.
.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, what are you working on now? Are you writing today?
I'm writing. I'm also learning, putting on the shoes of an author, learning how to market it, how to publish it, and because it's me, myself, and I. But yet I feel that God's behind it all. I'm also, I had shared with you, I'm an end-of-life doula. I practice that when it comes up. It's being with the dying. It's being with those who may call upon me and for my service. And my service varies because it depends on the person. But what an end-of-life doula is it's not a medical practice. It's a holistic practice of being comfort, not only with those who are dying, but with the family. But it's whatever they need. So it's a desire of my heart. I never thought so. Like I shared with you with my mom, who was the more privileged, and it was only my mom I was going to take care of, nobody else. But yeah, when I became like the taste of peace and the taste of heaven, that when I became a nun, God blessed me with more seats because I was with many people who have died from young to old, and I enjoy it. I like it. It's a passion of mine. The way I look at it is to help them transition from this life to wherever their life is, or whatever they think it, don't have to be Catholic or whatever a peaceful place, a peaceful place. I respect everyone's, whatever they believe in, but if they call upon me, I'd share or just be present, hold their hand, talk to them, or not say a word. Best thing.
Excellent. You're kind of like an independent hospice worker in some ways, and that the family can call on you, and you can fill in the gaps as needed in a time where people definitely could use some extra support.
Yes.
That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Gina. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I want to thank you for your service for doing this podcast and having people come on to share their experience to help others, because that's what we're here for. So thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. Now, to find out more, head on over to lameredith.com and be sure to hop on the mailing list too. If you've enjoyed this show, please leave a rating and review or share with a friend. And if you really, really liked it, go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Persistence U with Lisbeth.